Hey, and welcome to the Stories Unveiled podcast, where we talk about the purpose in every story and how to live in freedom from your past. I'm your host, Abby Sears, and each episode you're invited into a conversation about real life between me and a friend. I believe if an issue is addressed in the Bible, then it's important to create a safe and supportive space to discuss it. While some of these conversations are not easy, I do believe they are worth it. If you like what you hear, please visit our ministry at storiesunveiledconference.com. Thank you for joining today. You are listening to episode 5 of the Stories Unveiled podcast. This episode is pretty special to me because I had the opportunity to have my daughter, Abby Sears, in the studio. We had a candid conversation about parent-teen relationships, dealing with peer pressure, and dating. Abby is a high school junior and is passionate about Jesus and the people she loves. She has grown up in our home learning that living authentically is not always an easy road, but it is always worth it. Abby is one of the wisest teenagers I know, and her compassion inspires me daily. I hope you enjoy our chat. Well, typically I have friends joining me in the studio for conversations, and while today I do have somebody that is kind of a friend, she's also my daughter. Abby, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. We are going to talk about several things. One, more interestingly, maybe the mother-daughter relationship that comes up. But I will just start by diving right in and asking you to just share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm 16 years old. I go to school in Nampa, Idaho. And I play softball. I enjoy hanging out with friends and shopping, of course. Just typical things.
So you're just a typical teenage girl.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways more than others, but yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your experience being raised in the church. You are a Christian, and going to public school and some of the pressures that come with that.
Yeah, so I would say the first time I kind of noticed a difference between me and my friends in public school who were not Christians or were not necessarily religious was probably in 7th or 8th grade in my World Civ class. I was sitting, we had gotten all of our work done, and me and a couple of girls who I wanted to be friends with so badly were all hanging out, and I was just trying to fit into the conversation. And so they started talking about their older siblings, and surprisingly enough, when their older siblings lost their virginity. And first of all, my first thought was, why on earth do their little siblings know when their older siblings lost their virginity,
awkward.
right? That's kind of, it's definitely awkward. But I am the oldest sibling, and so I could not contribute at all, nor did I really want to.
Right.
But they then started going on about when they planned to. And some girls were saying oh yeah, probably when I'm 16. Mind you, we're about 11 or 12. And they're yeah, probably when I'm 16 or 17. And some girls were saying yeah, probably when I graduate high school or when I graduate college. And the idea of planning when to do something this big, when to lose your virginity, was so foreign to me. I had always been raised that it was when you met somebody and you married them and you loved them, and it wasn't just something that you just gave away to anybody, or that you had at a set age to give away. And so, yeah, it wasn't
a goal to attain.
No, not even a little bit. It was just whenever it was supposed to happen, right? When you were married.
Right.
And so when the question came around to me, I was well, I am going to wait till I'm married, actually, and till I find the person that I love and that I want to spend the rest of my life with. And the other 12-year-old girls are what?
What?
That is so lame. What on earth? And I think that was a really big reality check for me. That was oh, I am different. And the choices that I have made are very differing from the rest of the people around me.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I remember when you told me that several years ago when that happened in middle school. I just can't even imagine. Tell me a little bit about the choices that you have made and how they've affected relationships, whether they've been dating relationships, friendships, or otherwise. But being a Christian, you make sometimes different choices. Case in point, your virginity. Talk to me about how some of those choices have affected relationships.
I would say not so much in like my early stages of life, like early school, but I would say once I started high school, and our rule in our family, right, has always been that you can start dating when you get your license, at least for me.
Right.
I mean, probably my little brothers will probably be different, but for me, the rule was always when you get your license, you can start dating. So I got my license as early as possible. I got it end of freshman year and was driving by, I think, April of my freshman year.
You did have a drive to get your driver's license.
I did.
Pretty early.
I did have a drive, yeah. So I got my driver's license and I started dating practically immediately. And just the relation between like some people who are like, I just date casually because it's fun and I can. And some people who are like, I'm not going to date because that's dumb. And there are so many different opinions within the high school that I went to. And I think a big thing was I never really related to anybody in the way that I was dating to marry. You and Dad have always raised me to date to marry. It's always been kind of drilled into me that that's why you date. You don't date casually, especially in high school, just because it's a waste of time and honestly a waste of money, right? Like, so I never had it in my head that I was just dating casually. And while dating should be fun, that was never the drive for it. It was never like, oh, I just want to have fun. I just want to be a teenager, whatever. So I think that was a big one for me, was finding somebody who related to me on that level, spiritually and emotionally, just being the same maturity. And then I think for friends, like making the wise decision was difficult, especially like just more recently in the later years of high school, right? I'm graduating next year, which is a crazy thought. And
I know.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know, just having a larger friend group and different types of people within that friend group, and some people who make great decisions who I can hang out with, and people who don't make so great decisions who I don't hang out with as often.
Having that filter. Okay, so I'm going to rabbit trail for just a second. And I'm going to ask, is high school really that bad and scary as far as like, are bad things really happening on campus?
I wouldn't say scary. I think if you have, for me personally, I have a good relationship with the Lord and with you guys, with my parents. So I wouldn't say that it's like scary, but
I guess I just mean, I know, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good.
There are a lot of parents who I know I'm friends with, and their kids are maybe a little bit younger than you. And so they're terrified for their children to go to high school because of all of the things that happen. Do all of those things really happen in high school?
Yes is the true answer. Yeah. Not to scare anybody off or not to cause any fear, but yeah, I mean, I try to avoid the school bathroom at all costs.
Oh my
because
gosh.
I can't tell you how many times I've walked into a stall and been like, oh, strawberry shortcake smells just like strawberry shortcake, because people have just left vaping. Yeah, there's just like 4 girls who came out of the same stall, just got done vaping. And so I would say yes.
The rumors are true.
That the rumors are true. Yeah, because I have never experienced it or done any of it, but I just know that it happens because of the rumors spread around school. And I don't know. I would say the movies are not quite as real high school is not as intense as the movies, but there are definitely some things that ring true.
That go on.
Yeah.
But because you are able to make good choices or wise choices, and not all the time, you're still a teenager, but to be picky about who you spend your time with.
Yeah.
Is that
and
correct?
who I trust too.
Yeah. Who you allow to pour into you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit, and I'm going to ask, what is the hardest part about our relationship? Me and yours.
I would say, honestly, like the fact that we're so similar.
No.
Yes, we very much are so similar. And a lot of people tell us like, you guys look so much alike. You guys are like, you're her little mini me, which at this point I'm bigger than you now, which I think is funny.
It's true.
But I don't know. I think that our like personality our personalities are very similar. We're both very stubborn, and we have big attitudes, strong attitudes, and I think that when we are in conflict, that makes it really difficult to get along and to be able to hear each other's points and I guess like give credit to one another for how we feel, just because we both want to be right so bad. But on the flip side, that also makes it fun because then we can get along and we like the same things, and it's a 50-50 split between how it can make our relationship difficult, but then it can also make it fun.
Right. We are passionate justice seekers.
Very much so.
And so when there's been an injustice or when we don't agree with something or when we're passionate about something, as long as it's the same thing, we can rally and get along really well. But if we have opposing views,
it's a mess.
It can kind of be a mess.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your relationship with your dad? As a 16-year-old, I know you're not an adult, you don't have kids, so you don't know, but you are a kid. And I can see the importance of a child's relationship with their father, but really importantly, a teenage girl's relationship with their father. Tell me about your view on that.
Yeah, I think that it's really important to have a good relationship with both parents, obviously, but with your father, especially as a teenage girl, because I see how it plays out in other girls my age. But for me personally, I think I've grown up to be like in touch with my emotions. Sounds like isn't really what I'm going for, but I guess
but you are a high feeler. You're kind of an empath, and so I feel a lot of people's emotions, and I'm okay with that. Like, I am in counseling right now, just for a resource for me because I do deal with anxiety, and I stress just like any other high school student, right? Especially junior year. So, but I think that like growing up with both parents being willing to feel their emotions and express them outwardly rather than hold them in and mock me for feeling them, or mock each other even for feeling them, it's caused me to be able to help people who are that way and who don't want to feel their emotions, to be able to be like, I am a safe space. You can come to me and feel your emotions, and I'm not going to make fun of you. I actually encourage it. I'm a big advocate for feeling your emotions and for knowing, not necessarily letting them control you and letting them be like who you are, but just knowing what they are, because I think that's healthy. Yeah, and your dad has, in my opinion, done a good job at using that, or leading by example in that. Your dad is in touch with his emotions, and so it's allowed you to be able to use him as a safe place too. Yeah,
he's encouraged that with all of us, and all of us meaning my siblings too. Me and my brothers, all of three of us are so very different. But yeah, I think that it's helped all of us kind of understand that it's okay to feel how we feel.
So you're the oldest sibling. Yes.
And only girl.
That's a dynamic.
Yeah.
Talk about your sibling roles, being the oldest, the good, the bad, and the ugly about being the oldest sibling. I think there's some pretty good perks. I'm the oldest sibling as well.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some perks. I think that it is completely true that the oldest sibling is always the guinea pig. That's the definition for oldest siblings most of the time. And as I get older, I find that to be true. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's not good. And
we're learning.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're all learning at the same time. Parents, especially with the oldest, parents don't know how to be parents until they become one. And so
there's no rule book on parenting.
Exactly, yeah. So learning to be somebody's kid and then learning to be that kid's parent is as a process for everybody. But I think that for being the oldest and the only girl is definitely different than having two little brothers who are fairly close in age and fairly similar, but again, all have our differences. I think that being the oldest and the only girl has caused me to be like quote unquote the mom of the group in all of my friendships. Anytime we're talking about like our roles in our friendships or whatever, I'm always pinned as the mom of the group. That's what everybody calls me because I'm always prepared. Like I was saying earlier, I'm I am emotional and I am willing to talk to people about what's going on, about what they're struggling with, or about what is good in their life, right?
Like, come here, honey.
Yeah.
Tell me what's bothering you.
Exactly. And so, I just think I've always taken on that role in friend groups. And I mean, honestly, I don't mind it. I kind of like it because then I can be somebody that people go to.
Mm-hmm. Well, you are a leader.
Yeah. I think that my personality is very much achievement and leader driven.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can be a leader in a situation and help everybody achieve, then I feel successful. And that can be both a fault and a strength for me. But yeah, just having two little brothers that I care so much about and that I want to protect has definitely pushed me to be a leader in my friend groups and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I bet you feel like your brothers get away with a lot more than you did, though.
Most definitely. Yeah. Just because I am farther removed age-wise from them, I feel like I'm the only girl. So like I have all of these things that are like spotlights, right? So the more spotlights you have, the brighter the light is around you. And so I feel like I have quite a few spotlights, which can be good and bad, like I was saying. But as I get older, like I have a ton of opportunities that you guys have given me because I am older. Mm-hmm. And it's funny when the boys are like, what, you get to do this and I don't? I'm like, well, I am 16, so you don't have the freedoms that I do. But I also see how as they get older, like the rules are going to shift just because of not every child can be parented the same.
Right.
And that especially rings true with our family, right? And so I definitely see that my brothers get away with not necessarily a lot more, but they get away with different things.
Well, right, wrong, or indifferent, it is different raising a girl than it is a boy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
I have found myself parenting a little bit of a double standard to having rules for you that are for the boys.
Yeah,
and,
that don't apply.
Your brothers are 3 and 4.5 years younger than you. So there's quite a bit of an age difference there. But
yeah,
still.
for sure.
Before I ask you, I kind of have a 2-part last question for you. But before I ask you that, I just want to ask, what do you think is the hardest thing that teens face today?
Teens in general or like Christian teens?
I mean, if it's a different answer, then I guess both. But I mean, Christian or non-Christian, I think all teens still pretty much face the same things. I mean, I don't know. You can speak to that. I'm not a teenager.
Yeah. I would say that a big thing that teens face is what I hear from my friends and how I feel sometimes is just like the inability of being heard is what we feel like. And I know that that's like preached, like we want to be heard, but I think it's honestly true. A lot of teens struggle with their relationship with their parents because they don't feel like they're being listened to or their points aren't being heard. It's just like, we're your parents, so we're right. Which, I mean, obviously we are to obey our parents. But
we're not always right, though.
But exactly. But everybody, we're all human. And so there will be error anywhere. But I think that, something that teens struggle with, especially I would say Christian teens, because we know that we're called to obey our mother and father. And sometimes that's really hard. Sometimes we, especially me and you who are justice seekers, like you said, I sometimes feel like, no, that's not right. I know that what I'm feeling is right, even though I might not be correct.
Right. Our feelings aren't fact.
Exactly. But we feel like they are. And they're valid. And so, I think that we're also really emotional at this stage of life.
You and I both are emotional.
Yes, but teenagers.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. But teenagers specifically, I think.
Yeah.
Are very emotional at this stage of life, whether they like to be or not. We're at a really awkward stage right now. I would say from about 11 to
25.
Yeah, I was like 20, 25. Yeah.
There's some adults that can't regulate their emotions.
Exactly.
So I know it's hard. Yeah. Okay, well that actually leads perfectly into I have a 2-part last question for you. For the parent listening to this that is struggling with their teenager, that is struggling with their relationship with their teenager, Abby, what would you say to the parent?
I would just say, like, be willing to listen, and open to the ideas that your teenagers have. Not necessarily, like, give up on trying to, like, discipline, because I think discipline is good in parenting. I think it's necessary, but I think that as we grow older and we want to gain more independence, not necessarily have to, but we want to, just being willing to listen to us, because we are free thinkers. And I know from personal experience that being hard-headed and being stubborn and wanting my point to be heard, I've struggled a lot with just being able to hear your guys' perspective, but because we are so similar, I feel that sometimes too, when we have conflict. And so, yeah, I would say for any parents, just being willing to listen and just paying attention to signs outside of conflict too. If your teenager is struggling, just being in tune with them, I guess, rather than writing them off.
Yeah. So open communication, seek to understand and listen. Yes. And I'll even add something. Parents, it's so important, at least it has been in our situation, Abby, to have other trusted adults in your life. There are so many women primarily, but I mean a couple other dads other than your dad that we trust, we love, we share the same values, the same morals that we've allowed to pour into your life as you've grown up. Because as you've gotten older, as much as your dad and I would like to think that we would be the first people you run to, you're probably not, maybe not in every situation. And sometimes you just don't want to talk to us, or not yet, or it's hard, or whatever it is. That's part of why you're going to counseling, right? I'm going to just shed some light on that. It's part of why you're going to counseling, to process emotions and talk to an adult other than myself.
Yeah, for sure.
But to have other trusted adults, allow other trusted adults into your teenager's life that you obviously approve of. So they have another outlet. So they have somebody other than you, because I just think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes as the teenager, if I'm struggling with conflict between you and Dad and I have those adults that I can go to and be like, I don't know what to do. They're making me mad. I'm making them mad.
You can vent.
And get advice. It's helpful when they are parents as well, especially with kids around my age, just so that they can be like, well, here is what I bet your parents are feeling. So yeah, it's good to have multiple resources outside of your family.
Yeah. Okay. And then the flip side of that, the other question is to the teenager, the person that sees themselves in you, or just, kind of hears your story and is just right there with you. The teenager who is struggling with either their relationship with their parents or the Lord. What would you tell them?
For your relationship with the Lord, I would say, especially being in public high school, but in any aspect, honestly, I would say find outlets, find reliable outlets. So that can be people at school that you know that are good and reliable and
safe.
Yeah, I can think of a couple people right now that I know if I was struggling with something that I could go to them and they can have sound, godly advice.
Yeah.
And I love those friendships. I love having people like that to be able to talk to and then relate to. Like, I can go to any person, any of my friends at school, and be like, I'm really struggling with this. What do you guys have to say? And they can give me any piece of advice, but it might not fit my morals and my what I think is right.
It might not be sound.
Exactly.
Advice. Yeah.
And so just finding biblical resources, like sound and safe biblical resources outside of just the home, I think is really good for your relationship with God. I take Launchpad, which is a class, a non-accredited class outside of my campus at my school.
Right.
And it's basically like a Bible study, a class period for Bible study for Christians. And it's been really good for my relationship with God, because it has me continuing to dive into the Bible outside of just youth group on Wednesdays and Sundays. And I've grown to love the teachers and the people in it, and I just love how far it stretched my faith. And it keeps me curious outside of school and church and stuff like that. So I think that just surrounding yourself in what God has for you is really good for your relationship with God.
Yeah. And then what about struggling with relationship with your parents?
I think for that one, being willing to talk to your parents is a big thing. Kind of for the parents to just like the being willing to listen, but then being open with your kid. If you can relate to them from when they were younger, just have. It's
been a while since we've been teenagers.
It has, yeah. But just from my perspective, I know that if you guys have gone through something, then it is much easier to talk about something that I'm going through if it relates to you guys. So I think that for the teenager who's struggling with their relationship with their parents, just being willing to be open, whether that's with your parents or with that trusted adult. But I think everybody just needs to be understanding is a big thing.
For them to be patient with their parents.
Yeah, because like I was saying, like with any kid, but especially with the first kid, especially with the firstborn, like parents don't know how to be parents, right? All they've known is to be themselves until this new baby comes along, and then they're like, oh my goodness, now I'm responsible for more than just myself, right? So they also don't know how to be parents. And there's parenting books, but that doesn't prepare you quite enough for what it's like to really be put into the workspace.
Right. And, I think for most parents, when we know better, we do better. I think most parents, I'm obviously overgeneralizing, but I think most parents probably are trying to raise their kids better than the way they grew up. Or if they grew up in an incredible home, they're at least trying to match that. They're trying to be as good or better than their parents. And I think that that's something most parents strive to do. In our home and in our relationship, we have raised you in such a way that we've been very open with you about a lot of things at the season and age in which was appropriate for you to know things. But now at the age of 16, there's not really a whole lot that you don't know about me and your dad's past, about decisions we've made, about struggles and all of those things. And so just really quick, I know I already asked the last question, but how has that affected you in maybe knowing a lot more than some of the kids your age about your parents' like story and just with how open we are?
Yeah, I think that has caused me to be an open person. Yeah. Being surrounded by people who are willing to tell me like struggles in their life and who have been comfortable to share about really hard things, I think has, first of all, prepared me for the world, right? For kids who are maybe a little bit more sheltered than their parents express to them, right? So just knowing what the world is like, I think has been helpful and prepared me for things like high school, right? And having a job and all of those things. But I think it has, it's created a personality trait that is a large sharer, right?
Yeah,
I share.
Maybe overshare.
Maybe overshare, but we're working on it, right? So just learning that sharing is okay, and that it's okay for people to know that you're not perfect and that like your life isn't perfect. And I think I've found comfort actually in my ability to share. And when people ask me if I'm okay, not having to feel the pressure of being like, oh, I'm totally fine when I'm actually not totally fine. So yeah, I think that it's helped me a lot. I think it's affected me positively.
Yeah. Well, I am super thankful for you and thankful that God gave you to me to practice raising kids, because that's just what we're doing.
Exactly.
We're practicing parenting. And I'm thankful that, because I know for me, I was raised in a Christian home, but my faith didn't really become my own really until I was a grown adult, like legitimately a grown woman, with kids and whatnot. And I don't necessarily think that's the case for you. that your faith is your own. And I think that it became your own from an earlier age.
Yeah.
Just because of some of the things that you've walked through. And I'm just thankful for that. I'm thankful that you have a relationship with God. And you're just a pretty incredible human being. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mom.
I appreciate you being here. Love you.
Love you too.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation on the Stories Unveiled podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a rating or review. If you would like to learn more about Stories Unveiled and our events, go to storiesunveiledconference.com or follow us on Facebook or Instagram at storiesunveiled_. The Stories Unveiled podcast is created in partnership with KTSY and Barefoot Media Ministries. For more encouragement and other podcasts, visit ktsy.org. Have an incredible day and go live unveiled.